Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a book beat episode wherein I talk about all of the latest book news. It's something I really enjoy keeping up on as someone who is a huge fan of books and reading, and I like to see what is a buzz in our book world. So I have 3 stories for you today. I'm going to go from most serious to the most lighthearted, at least in my opinion. And I'm excited to share all 3 of these stories with you today. If you're new to my channel, know that I'm Shelly and I love books and reading, and I do like to keep up with industry news. So if you're enjoying the vibe, I would encourage you to subscribe, stick around. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. The first story is going to be some controversy surrounding a memoir. The memoir is The Salt Path by Raynor Wynn and about her husband, Moth. So the story itself, I own the book, I can't find it, we're going to proceed without it. The book itself is about how the couple falls into some financial difficulty, and after Moth gets a terminal diagnosis, the couple decide to take a 630-mile walk along the coast of southwest England. Through this journey, they learn more about themselves, each other, both spiritually and emotionally, and find healing through this journey that they're on. So there seems to be 3 components to this controversy. That was, I think The Guardian might have covered the story first. And anyways, so there's 3 components to this controversy, and I'll try and comment on them as we go along. The first is that it's not their real name. Raynor and Moth Wynn is not this couple's real name. Their real name is Sally and Tim Walker. In terms of changing names, I don't know, it happens. Cheryl Strayed, the memoirist of the very famous memoir Wild, that is not her real last name. Her real last name is something far less interesting. She had it legally changed, and I don't really have a problem with Cheryl changing her last name to Strayed. And so I don't know why I would take such issue with, or why it would bother me then for Raynor and Moth to have changed their names to that from Tim and Sally. Unless there's something sort of sketchy underneath, I don't think everything is black and white and that there's nuance to it, but that seems to be the first component to this controversy. The second controversy is this. Raynor says that the couple, invested in a family friend's business, and the business didn't end up doing well, leaving Raynor and her husband with a lot of debt. And the true story, which seems to be the most heart-wrenching, is that Sally actually embezzled $86,000 from an employer of hers. And when they charged her with embezzlement, she didn't fight the charge, and she ended up borrowing money from a friend in order to pay off the money she had stolen. I think that one's the most serious and the hardest to argue about. Just stealing money, it is not okay. And I think that because the memoir is because the memoir at least starts off with, like, you know, we were in financial difficulty because we made a bad investment, that puts them in a very sympathetic light versus I made this choice to take money from my employer without their knowledge and to, you know, do whatever I want with it, and I eventually got caught, and this is why we're now in financial troubles. That's very, very different. That is a very different light. One is sympathetic, one is more villainous, or at least more morally reprehensible. And so I think that that's one of the main issues with this. There was some digging that the reporter did saying that they owned some property in France, so maybe they weren't actually in in financial straits. That I don't know much about. Raynor and Moth Wynn say that the property they owned in France is virtually worthless. that seems to be fine. I'm not adding that as a component to the controversy. The controversy itself is the embezzlement versus the sort of financial straits versus like an innocent bad investment versus an intentional action that made yourself in financial trouble. So actually, I really do take some issue with that as just a person and a reader. And then the final thing is that I have to actually look up the diagnosis. I have my notes here, but they're not very organized. The third component to this controversy is Moth's diagnosis. So it says that he was diagnosed with CBD, which is a terminal diagnosis whose life expectancy is 6 to 8 years after the initial symptoms start. Now, I would take issue with this. It's now, just so you know, just the controversy is that now it's been 12 years since this original diagnosis. Moth is doing very well, and it's come out that he had an atypical CBD diagnosis. Now, I think what I would have the most issue with is if there was no disclosure, if the couple knew that it was an atypical diagnosis, knowing that this is an unusual form of this disease and that Moth's life expectancy was much, much longer, or that there was just going to be a longer run, and that this diagnosis was more manageable for Moth because of the version that he had, and that was never disclosed in the book. That would be very, I think, sketchy, in my opinion, that if they knew and they didn't say anything and they sort of played up the symptoms and the expectancy to be much, much shorter, I think that would be adding heightened drama to the story, sort of this sense of urgency, this time, the clock ticking down on Moth's life much quicker, making the story a lot more urgent than if it was just something that was able to be managed. I think that would be really sketchy as well, because I think you're playing into the reader's, playing on the reader's emotions and saying that this is a real story, even though you had information that said otherwise to what you were playing up to begin with. So that's the controversy in 3 prongs and sort of my take on it. Ultimately, I think that this is kind of icky. I don't know. I've had so many people recommend The Salt Path and saying that it was a wonderful book, and now I question the validity of the author, whether her book has as much truth in it as it originally seemed to have. I don't want to be lied to, I think. That's the main thing, is that I don't want to be lied to. And if the writer intentionally lied in her book, both about where they found themselves financially in the situation that brought them to this path, and also the diagnosis being less severe than she may have played it up to be, I think that that's sketchy, and I don't like that. I think that that's just morally reprehensible, and it really puts me off to the book. For me, myself, it's really taken the book way down a peg, and I think I'm going to donate it without reading it. I don't know, I just don't really want to spend time with people like that. But that's just me, and I know that some of you have really loved this book. So you're hearing it from somebody who has not read it. So if you've read the book, let me know what you think about this controversy and how it's played into the way that you've enjoyed it. Now, I don't know, this is not the first time that we've seen this come about. There was the James Frey, what was his name? There was the James Frey book, A Million Little Pieces, which fictionalized his experience in rehab as I think, drug and alcohol addict, and that there were definitely some parts of the book that was very, very elaborated on. And I think that in a lot of ways, if you go in knowing that the book is both fact and fiction and a blend of the two, sort of like an autofiction book, then that's one thing. When you go in knowing that there are going to be parts that are both real and fake, or real and imagined. Whereas if you're selling the book as a memoir and you're saying that everything in this is true and that it isn't just molded or shaped to tell a good story, because I do think that writers have the right to shape a story, to elongate, not fictionalize, but to maybe focus more, slow time down, speed time up, to do that kind of thing, to structure their book, to shape their book. But fully fabricate what has happened, or to fully fabricate certain things like a diagnosis or I don't know, just different experiences. I think that there is a line in which you cross it and now you're lying about you're actually being untruthful about the experience that you had. And I think that's a difference. So anyways, we can continue this conversation in the comments down below. But as for me right now, how I'm feeling is that it's really put me off to the salt path, and I will probably donate it. Even if it is a good read, right now it's just kind of put the ick in my mouth, like the ick in me towards that book. The second thing, lighthearted but also social media oriented, is that Jack Edwards has started a book club, and the book club is Inklings. It is based off of the writers group in the 1900s. The name is, who called them, I think they were like nicknamed or dubbed the Inklings. Anyways, he used that name, Jack Edwards did, to start his own book club. And for him, the book club is going to not only, you don't just read the book, but then Jack Edwards is going to go on to interview the author. And it's a community effort. You don't have to pay for it. I think he also launched a Substack, which is fine, but I think the Substack is paid and Inklings is not. So anybody can join this book club. And I like the premise of it. You read the book, you interview the author, and it'll be great. He says, Jack himself says that he wants it to be accessible, so he wants the books to be out in paperback, which means that he's going to be choosing titles that are not necessarily old, but they're not going to be brand new releases. And I like that idea of accessibility. The only thing is this, is that the first book that he chose is Evenings and Weekends by Ocean McKenna. Now, I would be interested in this if Steve Donahue, my favorite book critic, didn't include this in his Worst Books of the Year blog post. Yes, this made it to Steve's Worst Books of the Year, and I have trusted Steve in this, and if you're saying that it's a Worst Book of the Year, I'm going to probably avoid it. So I'm definitely not going to be reading Evenings and Weekends, but I thought it was interesting that Jack Edwards not only launched this project, but he also alluded to the fact that he wants to do more with it. Like, he maybe wants to make this an imprint, he wants to grow this is going to be his baby, his business, and I just think it's interesting that we're seeing somebody in the book space try and do this thing that we see in so many other spaces. Like, we see so many makeup content creators create their own brands, come out with their own palettes, collaborate, and we see that in other spaces. But in our book space, we don't see it as much. We see merch, but we don't see somebody trying to build a company from the bottom up and try and grow something from nothing. And for Jack, he's trying to make a publishing company, which I think is admirable and interesting, in that he wants to like move it and grow it into different things. I wish I could speak more eloquently, but I thought that was a fascinating component to our social media world and mostly our book world. And then the final thing is that Goodreads changed its logo, which really threw me off because Goodreads has had that brown and beige capital G forever. And Goodreads has famously, being owned by Amazon, which has a ton of resources, money, designers, people that could make the Goodreads website better. Like, come on, we just want quarter stars, half stars. We want more nuance to the website. And for years, I've heard from so many people that Amazon is not interested in making Goodreads better. So much to my shock and surprise, I see Goodreads has changed their logo from the capital G to a lowercase g. And here's what they said. Our new logo is designed to better represent Goodreads and is optimized for accessibility so it looks clear and sharp no matter where you see it. Now, I'm all about accessibility because as a teacher, librarian, we want to make sure that everyone is able to see and read and understand and identify a logo or a sign. And so that is just good practice for them. So good on them. Wait a second. I was just looking at the old Goodreads logo versus the new Goodreads logo. It is BS that they are saying that the new Goodreads logo is more accessible. It's just not true. The old Goodreads logo, which is a lowercase g, it is sans serif, so it doesn't have any squiggles or curls, which is actually the most accessible kind of font for people to read. Actually, serif font can be troublesome for those who have eyesight issues or even dyslexia or anything like that. Serif font is going to be more difficult for people to read. So Goodreads saying that their new logo is for accessibility is total junk. That's ridiculous. I had to add that in when I actually looked at the logo side by side. Your old logo was more accessible, Goodreads.
So you should be able to see it from your phone to a billboard. The lowercase g incorporates a magnifying glass over an open book, symbolizing the book discovery and sharing of perspectives that are at the heart of the Goodreads experience. It's fun, friendly, and focused on books, just like Goodreads. Okay, I don't know about the whole looking glass thing. Like, I can see it, but I don't know if I am buying it, because arguably the new G, it looks less like a G than the old, like, uppercase G. But I do think that this is a step towards them rebranding and then using their new G to market themselves in different ways, which I think is kind of exciting. I mean, like, I don't know. I like to see what's happening. I'm not gonna, sit here and besmirch Goodreads for being a part of Amazon, even though it's not my favorite. But I do think it's fascinating that they finally changed their logo, and I'm wondering, are you gonna pour more resources into Goodreads? Come now. Like, I don't know. A while ago, Britta mentioned that she would love to just make notes about a certain book without having to, like, review it, like just private notes about a book that's on Goodreads. For example, like, who recommended the book to you, just to type it up or to make that little annotation for oneself. And you still can't do stuff like that. You still can't do half stars. Like, what kind of world are we living in? So, I wonder if this is a step towards something bigger and better. Oh, and I guess I have 4 stories. So my bonus story, I'll say. My bonus story is that Olive, at a Book Olive, our resident non-fiction cheerleader, a booktuber who's been on here for about 10 years, but is taking a little bit of a break, slowing down a little bit. She put out this this Instagram story. She announced on Instagram that there is going to be a documentary about Wishbone. What's the story, Wishbone? Which was a PBS show. She ended up doing a whole series reviewing all of the books that were featured on this television show for kids that helped get kids excited about literature. They often covered classics, and it was so great. I remember watching it as a kid. I definitely caught several episodes that Olive did, and she not only read all the books that were featured on the television show, What's the Story, Wishbone, but she reviewed them all and dug into the episodes. And I wonder, Olive, are you part of the Wishbone story? Like, are you a part of this documentary? Like, did you write it? Are you hosting it? Are you going to be a speaker in it? Are you helping fund it? I think that she might be connected in some way. And so if that is happening, that is very, very exciting. But mostly it's really cool to see a documentary about the behind the scenes of a really great television show that was so wholesome and that illuminated or highlighted literature in the way that they did. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a story that you want me to cover, let me know. I'm excited to sit down and just share with you the things that I've been seeing in our community lately. I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you all